It's going to be recorded. Welcome, everyone. For those of you who don't know, I'm Kathy Osborne, and I head up something called the Regional Business Council. We're a consortium of 100 CEOs of large companies in St. Louis. And we believe very strongly in how important talent is. So for each of you, if I don't know you personally, think about that I think about you all the time. This is a great place to be. It's a great place to make your mark here. And the YPN is trying to provide with some business connections, social connections, and a vehicle to give back. And we've got some terrific panelists. And I guess the one comment I would make for anybody that's on this call is sometimes we think in life, well, I've got to know Don Suggs right now because he's a very important person, and he is an important person. He's a great person to know, but spend more time with the people who are your peers, because what'll happen is they'll go on and do wonderful things. And then you have developed that relationship along the way. So just remember that you're building a network of people that you can count on. Dr. Suggs was a mentor to me when I was the Vice Chancellor at University of Missouri, St. Louis, which was done decades ago. I'm embarrassed to say this to everybody. And he took me aside and he said, he didn't say it this way, he's more sophisticated. Hey, kid, I'm going to help you. I'm going to tell you, what needs to be done here, who to meet with, how to do it. And he was kind, and I listened, and it has served me very well. And we now serve on a number of boards together and are very, very good friends. Well, there's a lot of other things I could say, but I think what I'm going to do is be much more deliberate in terms of introducing you and getting into this program right away. LaShonda Barnes is the Vice President and Compliance Officer at Citi. As I mentioned, she's co-chair of the Young Professionals Network. She's been part of the YPN for many years, and I've seen her grow and develop. And now she's on a number of very significant boards and is really making her mark here in St. Louis. She's also just written a book, and I'm so excited about this, Overcoming, Living Our Best Life in Spite of, don't we all have things that, oh my goodness, I can't do this because of that. And this book evidently is going to tell you how to live that best life in spite of whatever that is. And that'll be launched in March. And LaShonda, I want to be the first in line to get the book and give it to all my friends and things of that sort. So what she's going to do is introduce our panel. And these are people you most likely know and know well. But I'm going to turn it over to her to get us started. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that so much. It's been really my pleasure to be part of the YPN for so many years. There's nothing that makes me more proud than to present to you opportunities like we're going to tonight. This is an event that is just for our young professionals and specifically for our St. Louis young professionals. Where else in St. Louis can you hold space with legendary people like Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Dr. Donald M. Suggs? Or do you get the rare opportunity to have the undivided attention of people like government figures, such as the influential Dr. Vernon Mitchell? I hope that each of you are taking full advantage of everything, all the value and the opportunities that the YPN brings. The YPN was established specifically for diverse professionals like yourselves. I encourage each of you to get plugged in. And if you would take time now by scanning the QR code on the screen and clicking the link to the chat. We're hoping that this will be an interactive session and you have a lot to look forward to. So now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing the very brilliant Laurna Godwin, who will serve as our moderator for the evening. Laurna is a 3-time Emmy-winning broadcast journalist from New Jersey who holds degrees from both Princeton University and Columbia University. She spent nearly 20 years as a television news anchor, reporter, and talk show host, working with NBC in Virginia, WNET in New York City, KETZ and KPLR here in St. Louis, and CNN as a Midwest reporter. She has been a recipient of many awards and accolades throughout her career, including being named one of the most influential businesswomen and one of the most influential minority business leaders in the region by St. Louis Business Journal, and most inspiring St. Louis. I'll say that twice. Most inspiring St. Louisan by the St. Louis AACP. Today, Laurna is president and co-founder of Vector Communications Corporation, a public engagement and communications consulting firm based here in St. Louis. In addition, Laurna remains involved in the community. She has served on several civic and corporate boards, such as Greater St. Louis Community Foundation, St. Luke's Hospital, the St. Louis Police Foundation, Arch Grants, and of course, the Regional Business Council. Laurna, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We're extremely honored and look forward to a fantastic evening. And now I will turn it over to you to introduce our panelists and get this exciting night going. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, LaShonda. Thank you for that great introduction. I always love being around young people, particularly young professionals. And this is a great evening we have planned for you, especially thanks to Tina Haberberger of the Regional Business Council for assembling such a fantastic group of panelists for you to hear from this evening. We're going to talk about legacy, what it means to them, what it should mean to you, and most importantly, what it means to the Black community, particularly here in St. Louis. Our panelists exemplify Black history 24/7, 365 days of the year. So let me introduce them. First is Dr. Vernon Mitchell. Dr. Mitchell was recently appointed by Mayor Tashora Jones, the city of St. Louis's first African-American female mayor, to serve in her administration as the Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer. He holds a PhD in history from Cornell University and master's degrees from Cornell and the University of Missouri. He has previously held roles at Washington University in St. Louis and the University of South Carolina, where he taught courses on social movements and the impact of African-American art and culture on American popular culture. Our next panelist really needs no introduction, but out of respect and admiration, I will introduce her. Born and raised in East St. Louis, Illinois, Jackie Joyner-Kersee is regarded as one of the greatest athletes of all time. She competed in 4 consecutive Olympics, winning 3 gold medals, 1 silver, and 2 bronze. She is the first woman to win back-to-back gold medals in the heptathlon, the first African-American woman to win an Olympic medal in the long jump, and the first woman to score 7,000 points in the heptathlon. She was named by Sports Illustrated as the greatest female athlete of the 20th century, and still to this day holds a world record in the heptathlon. Jackie is also a remarkable philanthropist and advocate for children's education, health issues, racial equity, social reform, and women's rights. She chose to return home to East St. Louis, Illinois to find the Jackie Joyner-Kersee Foundation, which works tirelessly to ensure every youth has access to safe places within their communities and is given the opportunity to achieve greatness. And last but not least is the Dean of Black Professionals in St. Louis, who has been a mentor and friend to me since I moved here from New York City in 1987, Dr. Donald Suggs. Dr. Suggs has been the publisher and executive director of the St. Louis American newspaper for 40 years. A native of East Chicago, Indiana, his first career was as a successful oral surgeon. Dr. Suggs was the first African-American chief of oral surgery at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, and the first African-American associate clinical professor at St. Louis University School of Dentistry. He was also active in the civil rights movement in the 60s and 70s, serving as chairman of the Poor People's March on Washington in 1968. Dr. Suggs acquired the St. Louis American in the 1980s when it was struggling, but in the past 4 decades, he has returned the paper to its initial glory as one of the top African-American newspapers in the United States. The St. Louis American is a trusted voice for the African-American community and has the largest readership of any weekly in the state of Missouri. Those are our panelists for this evening. Please welcome them with a virtual wave or however you like to do it. So let's talk. I want to share with you on the screen a quote from Kalana Barfield Brown, a Black female fashion and beauty editor and icon. And I really feel this quote encompasses what we want to discuss this evening. The quote is, "Sometimes we think of legacy as what we leave behind, but what really our legacy is what builds the future. Our legacy is what builds the future." So we'll start first with Jackie Joyner-Kersee. Jackie, did you go into your athletic career specifically to build a legacy, or was it a byproduct of your goals?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank Tina for inviting me to be a part of this, and also, just an honor for me to be here this evening, with everything that's going on and still being able to celebrate Black History Month and pulling us all, together, and just pretty amazing. So when I think about my career, it was just something that I love doing. Wasn't thinking about a legacy. And your question was building it or a byproduct of that? It probably was a byproduct of it, because throughout people start talking to you about legacy. But growing up and in my household, that's not something we discussed. We didn't discuss legacy. We, discussed hard work. You set a goal, you stay committed to it, you see it through, or being from the community, be proud of where you're from, you work hard. And then from there, not realizing the gift I was blessed with athletically that would allow me to pick my school of choice and do some things outside of sports. And then all of a sudden you start realizing from interviews, and the interviewee is asking you about legacy. But as long as I was in it from the standpoint of just trying to show other people what could be done when others said that it couldn't be done.
Dr. Mitchell, what about you? How important is building a legacy to you, for yourself? And I know you're also trying to build one for Mayor Jones as well.
Yeah, thank you. And like Mrs. Joyner-Kersee said, I'm honored to be here. I'm really honored to be here because I'm a fan, right? So I saw all of the victories. I saw, like many of you, Jackie Joyner-Kersee is an icon, but she's a real person though. And I think that, I have a young son, 2 young sons, actually, and we had a chance to watch Space Jam, and I showed him the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan. And we watched the new Space Jam, and he says, about a week after we watched it, he enjoyed both of them. And he says, "Daddy, LeBron James is a real person." And I said, "What do you mean, son?" He said, "I saw him on TV. He was playing basketball. He's a real person." So in the same way, Jackie Joyner-Kersee is a real person. And I think only in St. Louis will you have the opportunity to actually get a chance to engage in fellowship with your heroes, with your sheroes, right? And given the month and given this opportunity, this time right now is really important. And in terms of legacy, whether or not she knows this, but both Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Dr. Suggs created it's inspired in me a legacy. I had legacy in my family, with my grandparents on both sides, my maternal and paternal grandparents. But I was always thinking about, how do I pay back the blessings that I received, right? When I was living in New York or living in South Carolina, my heart and my spirit was always thinking about St. Louis. And the things that I'm doing now, especially in this moment, with Mayor Jones's dynamic and history-making leadership and her election, was to help in that effort. What can I do with my particular skill set that would be helpful to my community in a very direct way? And I started to think outside the box. And so I've been cognizant of legacy before I had children, but now that I do have children, am I going to be a good steward of what Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Dr. Suggs have left to bequeath to my generation, right? And the cool thing about it is that I can talk to them, but I also can talk to you as well. So as we chart paths for the future, I think have to be, cognizant of our history as we chart that path, but then, be bold enough to push forward, right? To take the helm, informed by the legacy, to create new legacy. And so I'm not saying, one of those situations where we don't need the history. No, you need the history to inform the new steps that we'll make. So I'm always thinking about legacy in that way, not as something that I'm leaving behind per se, but an active kind of force, a river, if you will. Right. I think that when my grandparents came to St. Louis in the late 30s from Mississippi and Louisiana, they inserted into the Mill Creek Valley and Kinloch, Missouri, seeds in that soil, right? Mm-hmm. I was birthed from those same seeds. So I just try to think about legacy in that way, and doing my due diligence to be a good steward of what they've left to me.
Thank you. So Dr. Suggs, all of us agree that you are a legend, and you've had so many varied careers, from being a dentist, a newspaper publisher, civil rights activist, and an art enthusiast and philanthropist. When you were a young professional, did you think about creating a legacy at that time, or was it just, were you too busy working and trying to make it?
Well, for me, first of all, thanks to everyone responsible for YPN. I mean, Kathy and all who had been so instrumental in creating this opportunity for you as young professionals to interact and to get to know each other and know this community. Well, I certainly don't think in terms of legacy, even at this point in my life. But what I do think about are values, and those come from my parents. And so for me, the measure is, how would my parents be pleased? And so that leads you to some of the life choices you make about all the things you decide to pursue. And they encouraged me, and they come from a very modest background. And so what was most important to me is to make certain the opportunities they enabled me to have, so that I measured up to them and to the kind of parents they were, kind of sacrifices they made on behalf of myself and my brother and my sister. So for me, it doesn't start with me at all. I don't think in those terms. But what I do think of is, would they be pleased? Would they be pleased? And so unlike Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Dr. Mitchell, I am not a native of St. Louis, although I spent much of my adult life here. In both cases, I made the choice to come to St. Louis. In both cases, it was like a serendipity. Very unlikely. I didn't know where St. Louis was at the time I came here initially. And subsequently, a couple of years later, when I lived on the East Coast, where Laurna is a native of, I had no idea of coming back to St. Louis, but I came back again with a serendipity. And it's turned out to be the best decision I've ever made. And before I end my comments here, I want to say that one thing that comes with being an older person and having children and having multiple careers is it allows you to interact with lots of people and to have gone to lots of places in this country and abroad. So, but most of what I could say that about St. Louis is that most of the things that I've had access to or have developed some enthusiasm for, or the people I have met, it starts with St. Louis. And so I am, even at this point in my life, I can't imagine living any place but St. Louis because of what it's meant for me. It's given me so much more than the tiny bit I may have offered them. So I'm just pleased to be here. Thanks again for having me. It's always a pleasure to interact with young people.
Thank you. So you've touched on the fact, and when the four of us were talking last week in preparation for this event tonight, there was a clear feeling that being here in the St. Louis region was important to you for that legacy. So Jackie, you were travel the world in California. For what reason or reasons was it important for you to come back to East St. Louis, Illinois, and continue building your legacy here?
For me, I think my foundation is where I grew up, and to be proud of where I'm from. And I knew that I wanted to go to school on the West Coast, but I also knew that it was very important for me to come back and be in the community and try to build a community center. But more importantly, that our young people could talk to me, could touch me, not just see me in the newspaper or see me on the television, that know that I'm real, and to be proud of where I was from, because a lot of people who had success that came from the community, they wouldn't claim East St. Louis. And I remember sitting in my sixth grade classroom, and people say they were from the outskirts, but they just never would say, because people would say so many negative things about our community. But for me, it was always to come back, to build a center, to share what I had learned, and in ways of encouraging others that it's okay to spread your wings, but please come back so we can build a much stronger and better community.
It was like what Dr. Mitchell said about the sun. LeBron James is a real person. Jackie Joyner-Kersee is a real person.
Yeah, because you would be surprised that when I would talk to young people, and they knew and believed that at the time, yes, I was living in Los Angeles, and they were like, no, you're supposed to be in Hollywood. And I'm like, no, Hollywood is where we make it. And that's right here. We don't make it Hollywood.
Good point. Good point. Good. So Dr. Mitchell, your story, you left St. Louis, went off to other places to work, and then came back to St. Louis recently, your home. For what reasons did you decide to return here?
Kind of the same reasons. I mean, not because it's Hollywood, but I think, as kind of said before, I thought it was a time. The time was right to come back. My mother thought when I left to go to New York that I would never come back to St. Louis, and some things happened personally that allowed for that to occur. Because this is actually the second time I've been back to St. Louis. So I came back once and left again, but I came back now largely because of Mayor Jones. That was kind of the catalyst, and we brought the family back, and we thought, like, we don't need to go to DC. We don't need to go to New York. We need to be impactful in the place that created us. And personally, that was, part of my decision to work, especially now in government, was to do something directly engaged in the city and region that I love.
Dr. Suggs, you talked about in your introductory remarks about St. Louis and staying in St. Louis, and you made that decision where you could have lived other places. And you have said that there is a real opportunity for young professionals in St. Louis, and that they can really matter here. Could you expound on that a bit, please?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of this, what you aspire to, what interests you a great deal, what your inclinations are, you have to come to grips with yourself. And I think that you have to find what makes some sense for you as a person. Now, I come from a generation where there was abject segregation. I mean, it was practice. When I came to St. Louis was very much a southern city. I grew up outside Chicago, and I spent a lot of my growing up in Chicago as well. So it was very disconcerting for me, but I was in an environment where I was protected somewhat. I came here for the sole reason that I wanted to come to a Black institution, Black run institution. I'd never had a Black teacher in my life.
Mm.
School district I went to was integrated and predominantly white. But here Blacks were in charge, and I yearned for that. I was on my way to New York City, and I chose St. Louis simply for that reason. I think that the second time I came back to St. Louis was because they would offer me an opportunity to be the first at this university where I'd had some training, and I wanted to, always felt some sense of obligation. I hear the phrase about giving back. I don't think about giving back. I think about what I owe. Because coming up in my generation, coming up in my background, because I grew up in a community very much like Jackie Joyner-Kersee in East St. Louis. I grew up in a place called East Chicago, and all the people throughout my life that have helped me, a person of really quite ordinary ability, to have these extraordinary opportunities. I owe them. So for me, it has very little to do with me as an individual. It's me understanding on the shoulders on which we stand. And I am honored to be of any kind of value to a community that nurtured me, indulged me, supported me, protected me, put up with me. And so for me, it's my obligation, the debt I owe. And so I see life that way. And I think in St. Louis, we're a medium-sized city where there's an opportunity for you to have some kind of impact. And so when I visit my friends on the coast, they don't have the kind of impact. A lot of them are quite successful. The kind of impact one can have here if you have a positive mindset and you align yourself with people. I was fortunate to meet Kathy Osborne at a time in my career when I was shifting from being a healthcare professional to getting into more like the real world. And I've been enhanced by Kathy Osborne, who I would not have known otherwise if it had not been St. Louis. So that for me is what I feel most proud of, that I've been able to maintain that mindset throughout my adult life, the whole idea of owing.
I love the fact that you said it's not about giving back, but what you owe. I will remember that. That is, and I hope the young professionals listening will remember as well. Dr. Mitchell, you said something the other day that I would like for you to expound on, which is two questions you put forward. Why not you and why not now? What is that message you want to get across to our young professionals this evening?
I think that statement, when I made it, I was thinking about taking risks, right? Because I think a lot of times we get trained in these careers. We think about the careers, we get an MBA, MD, JD, PhD, whatever it may be. And we think about that one particular thing, and then we see there might be opportunity for us in kind of a hybridized way. And we think, oh, that's not really for me. All right. And I thought in much the same way to what Dr. Suggs is saying, I owe, right? I got a debt to pay. And so that was the why not me, why not now? When the position was posted, I decided to apply for it. I talked to a couple of people who were already working for the city, and they were like, Vernon, do it. You could do it. I'm like, I don't know. This is, this is not really, no, you are, no, who other than you? And I thought, you're right. This is my opportunity. And so that's what it was born from. And I think a lot of times we just need that encouragement to do those types of things, to be our own version of Jackie Joyner-Kersee, to be our own version of Dr. Suggs, right? And I think that is, because it's a very active thing for me, the legacy piece about why not me and why not now? Even when sometimes you don't feel like, there are definitely times when you feel unease and a little anxiety, but that's good. And I think
stretch
that you
that
should
way.
move into it.
You
Yes.
stretch.
Yes.
For what reasons did you think you could not, you shouldn't consider the job, but your friends and colleagues egged you on, pushed you?
Well, I think inherently a lot of us have, kind of the mentality that we're posers in some way, that despite our talents and our gifts, that we're not good enough, right? And I think in some respects, we get very rigid about who we are, what we're going to do, and how we're going to do it. And you need to be pushed and stretched, as you say, at times. And so that's kind of where it was for me when I was questioning whether or not, I should do it. And, it's been a good fit.
Mm-hmm. Jackie, where did you get the will, but besides hard work, to know that you could be the best athlete in the world? Where did that come from for you?
I want to believe that it wasn't about being the best athlete in the world. It was more about seeing myself improve and not being afraid to test myself against the best, and knowing that no one could outwork me. And so even through that process or that journey, your confidence build, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in the race competing against the best in the world, and then you go, well, like, why not me? It's like, different than I am. You put your shoes on the same way that I do. And so the attitude was more being able to perform at the highest level and executing when it counted. And so I would say, from my upbringing, never being afraid of a challenge, and know that struggle and all that's going to come along the way, but what can I learn from it to make myself better, to achieve the goals that I had set for myself? And it wasn't winning. It was really about just seeing myself improve. If I was running 1/10 of a second, if I was jumping 1/2 of an inch, if I made a B, can I get a B+? Can I get an A-? That was my mindset. Because when I first started running at the age of 9, I finished last in my first race. And I had to learn how to become a winner. And each step along the way, I would get ribbons of different colors, 4 through 9. And then I recognized 1, 2, 3, get hardware. And I had to figure out how I'm gonna get in the top 3. And then not knowing the top 3 would make national teams and eventually Olympic teams.
Did you hear that, everyone, that the first race that Jackie Joyner-Kersee was in, she came in 9th. A lot of people would have said, that's not for me. I need to try something else. But I also think, and Dr. Suggs, I'd like for you to comment on this, that as Black people, we often know that, or feel that we have to work twice as hard, that we have to go that extra mile, that we can't give up. Would you talk about that a little bit in relation to your life?
First, a disclaimer. I mean, with no, I don't want to in any kind of way diminish the prominence of Dr. Mitchell, but let's face it. I mean, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, I mean, that's God-given. I mean, she worked hard and all that, but the Lord gave her, the kind of what it took to become who she is. So she's too modest. So those of you who are younger got to realize you're talking about somebody here. Worlds of good, billions of people live on this planet, and what she's done, very few people have the kind of gifts that enable you to even be able to consider doing something like that. But for me personally, I think it has more to do with trying to be your best, living your best life. As Black people historically, and I know this is boring for younger people, but you come from a pretty rough tradition, and people had things badly. In my own family had very little formal education. And so now that you have these opportunities, it's a measure of yourself and your value as a human being, and how will you respond to these opportunities. And I think a place like St. Louis, got to put a plug in for St. Louis, affords you an opportunity. And what Jackie has shown you wherever you come from, you can do first-rate work. And so I'm not saying this about myself, but the St. Louis American for a dozen years was clearly the best Black boutique in the country in a so-called second-tier city. So that means you can do first-rate work wherever you happen to be. I have a friend that came and visited me from California, and I had another friend with me who was very fashion conscious. She said that woman's wearing about $5,000 or $6,000 worth of clothes, Donald. She has $3,000 Givenchy boots. Oh, really? We went to the museum up on our hill, and so she said that she loved art. And everything she had to say was almost sophomoric. I mean, she really didn't know much about art at all. And so well, Donald, how did you learn this? How did you know about who built this building, who built the expansion, who these people are? You walk through these galleries, all in St. Louis. St. Louis afforded me the opportunity to have the kind of access that no matter how successful I might have been as an oral surgeon in LA, there's no way I would have had the kind of access. As I said earlier, I wouldn't have met Kathy Osborne if I probably would have had a reasonably good middle-class income. But I wanted more than that. I wanted more out of life. I wanted more out of myself. I wanted more out of my children. And St. Louis, so we've got to talk about St. Louis a little bit here, about the challenges in St. Louis, no doubt about it, but the opportunities here are considerable. And this particular moment in time, when St. Louis is on the cusp, in my view, of moving back to some of the prominence and some of the stature that it had in the past. So I think as young professionals, you need to keep in mind, where can I do well, but where can I also do good? And you have institutions in St. Louis, like the Urban League. I think we have an extraordinary United Way. Kathy's very active in the United Way. An opportunity to serve. So all of us grew up, with our parents, we developed our values, the opportunity to serve. That is a blessing, you all. I mean, it's always difficult for an older person talking to younger people, but as you get older, and I just want to make it clear for me, I've been very fortunate, lots of places, I've lived lots of places. My kids have gone to school, lots of places, they speak multiple languages, but trust me, the idea of being able to help people. So you talk about legacy, the idea of the value to somebody beyond yourself. It's what we learned from our parents, from our churches. And that to me is a gift. If you can get that into and particularly at an early age in your life, if you can make that a part of your concern and your values, it's going to be a life well spent.
Dr. Mitchell, do you agree with the opportunity to serve is really what legacy is all about?
Yes, point blank, period. My grandparents on both sides worked hard. I saw it, and they reared me in that same type of ethos. But the working hard was not working hard to just keep working hard. But my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, Pastor John Mitchell Sr. would say, son, work smarter, not harder. And that was about, once you equipped yourself, okay, it's time to rethink what we were doing before. For instance, I was younger driving a tractor. My grandfather was with a plow and a mule, right? And so in that same way, you do have to, do that work that's necessary, but not hard work for hard work's sake, but toward a goal, toward something else. And my grandparents and my parents are really steeped in that. So I didn't really have any other option. I didn't conceive of not paying that back, of not actualizing my potential in ways I hadn't really conceived of.
And Jackie, with your foundation and your center in East St. Louis, it's all about serving the community for you.
Yes, I grew up in an environment that taught me a lot about serving, and that's all I know. Having the Jackie Joyner-Kersee Center and being able to provide a place where our families and our students can come and the service that we provide, from transportation feeding them, to engaging with them, and also keeping them fit somewhat. You know, it's a blessing to be in that position, but it was because someone did that for me. You know, it's one thing to serve, but you also know you need resources to be able to do it. You need people to support your mission and your vision. You know, and while doing this, you have to have a lot of patience, and you get a lot of rejection. But if
I was
you
going to
true
say, it
to
hasn't been easy. It
no,
hasn't been easy.
yeah, no. If you're true to it, yeah, many doors were shut, but the ones that open will always be there forever.
I want to go back to what Dr. Suggs was saying about St. Louis, because I went and just did a little research on St. Louis, because I think a lot of us St. Louisans have a low self-esteem about the city. But I wanted to share 2 slides with all of you tonight and think about this. Did you know that Smart Asset, which is a financial technology company, recently ranked St. Louis among the top 4 cities in the United States for young professionals to live and work? And they base that on it's a very affordable place to live with a low cost of living at around a little over $20,000, the lowest average rent at a little over $800, and workers earn more here than in other cities. And then I don't know if any of you saw earlier this month that JobSage, a career guidance service, ranks St. Louis as the #1 startup for entrepreneurs of color. 25% of startups in St. Louis are minority owned. And I know, Dr. Suggs, you are also bullish on entrepreneurship and starting businesses. And speaking of a legend, recently 2 local philanthropists made a 5-year pledge to support the Donald Suggs Entrepreneurial Award and funding at Arch Grants. So just talk a little bit about the importance of legacy in terms of entrepreneurship for some of our young people who are or may want to become entrepreneurs.
Well, as this region tries to rebound from its, previous prominence and previous status, the key things probably have to do with entrepreneurship and innovation. And St. Louis has gone out of the way to provide additional opportunities for people of color, and more specifically African Americans who are aspiring to start their own business. So it's been a great place for startups in that way. But St. Louis is like, it's a tale of 2 cities in lots of ways. Some people live, fairly easy lives, and there's a lot of people who live, on very much the margins of society. So St. Louis's brand per se, as it goes compared to Atlanta or Houston or Dallas or Charlotte, but it really comes down to you, what your aspirations are and what you are up to. What Jackie was telling you is she's not the only person that's talented, but she was the only person of that talent with that gift who were willing to bring to bear what it required for her to evolve or to develop in the kind of athlete that she became. So I do think it's a measure of yourself. I mean, some people tell this story probably, and I'll do it very briefly, about my daughter who was in graduate school, very prestigious graduate school on the East Coast. And when our daddy would come to town, they could go to a nice restaurant. We had 2 groups of students. The group on one side wanted a lifestyle. They wanted, where the weather was warm, they wanted the ocean and all that, which is, I'm not critical of them at all. The other side, much more hard-eyed about it and said, I want to go with this opportunity. And I'm saying to you as young people, if you're up to it and you have some special something to offer, this is a city that can serve your aspirations. So whether you stay here, whether you go someplace else and decide to come back, St. Louis is on the rise. And I think, as I said, not everybody's up to it. Some people want to work, and sort of have something that's laid out for them. Other people are more aspirational. And I would say for those of you who are aspirational, you drop your bucket here and people will go out of their way to try to be helpful to help you to be successful. So I had to say that about St. Louis, because I do believe that's
I
true.
know. And listen, I'm the facilitator. I'm not supposed to really give my opinion, but you're right. That's what happened in my case. You know, I moved here from New York City, and as a television news reporter, thinking I was going to stay in that field for the rest of my life. I did it for 20 years, actually long enough. But I stayed in St. Louis on advice from people like Dr. Suggs, what he's telling you right now. And I ended up starting a business. I never in a million years thought I would start a business and then be in business for 24 years. If I'd stayed in New York City, I highly, highly doubt that I would own a business and be able to keep it for 24 years. But in St. Louis, there are opportunities, not only opportunities professionally, but opportunities to serve, as you heard earlier. And that's the unique part about it. And like Dr. Mitchell is coming back because the second time, you learned your lesson now, stay this time, that you want to help our first Black female mayor make a difference and leave that legacy.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's it. I don't think I have to wax eloquent about, you know, the words. It is about the work and doing the work with some amazing dynamic people and having leadership that is going to empower you. That's an amazing feeling to be in that kind of situation. And I think it's not just, you know, particular to me right now. It's something that each of us on this call can experience. And I think that to Dr. Suggs' point, you know, cast your bucket here, that there's work to be done, and the fruit of from the tree, from the labor, can be transformative, incredibly transformative.
This question is from one of our participants who sent it in when she registered. And she wants to know, is there anything you would like to see this generation do more of to continue the legacy of Blacks in this community, such as yourselves? So Jackie, I'll start with you.
You know, I want to say that I want to give a shout out to Jarena Phillips, who's one of my board members, and she's on as one of the young professionals, and Kathy Osborne for believing in my organization from the very beginning. And I talk about Kathy Osborne because what I would like for this generation to continue to do is allow that river to unite us. Find a way so it unite us and not divide us. Not divide St. Louis, the region from the East St. Louis is in a whole nother state. We must find a way to unite and work together. That's what I would like to see.
Sometimes that river is treated like the Great Wall of China.
Yes.
St. Louis and East St. Louis.
So we got a generation that can change that, I believe.
And I just want to interject right here. You've heard young professionals, Kathy Osborne mentioned. You heard Kathy Osborne in her intro say how much Dr. Suggs helped her. You heard Dr. Suggs say how much Kathy has helped him. You hear Jackie saying how much Kathy has helped her. That's another beautiful thing about St. Louis, is that there are people who are willing to help you, and it's a big little city. I often say that those resources are here for you, and you help one another grow and build that legacy. So I want to go back to the question about what would you like to see this generation do more of to continue the legacy of Blacks in this community, such as yourselves. Dr. Mitchell, your answer to that question.
I would say, you know, reimagine yourself. And reimagine yourself in a very radical way, right? Think about, you know, what I said earlier about why not you, why not now? You don't need to, well, everything that you need is right here. The network is real. I've been a beneficiary of that network, and helping to reimagine myself has been the network. I see on the call, Stephen Harris is here. He was a big part of me early on coming back, helping to reimagine myself. Dr. Suggs can appreciate this. There were great artists like Romare Bearden, and one of my personal favorites was Augusta Savage. They created legacy because of the dedication to the work that they were doing. It just happened to be in Harlem, right? You just happen to be in St. Louis, so why not here? And so I think that's the kind of attitude that we have to have about the transformational nature of the moment. It's real, and we just need to take the reins because I'll say it this way, you're not alone in that task. I thought when I went down this path, even going back to get my doctoral degree, I'm out here alone. What am I going to do? And then you find out that people are watching you and are willing to help you, right? So you don't have, I've never felt alone. I don't feel alone right now. And so that's been a big part of keeping my energy up, my spirit up about, doing this work. Because at some point the inspiration wanes, right? When you hit those roadblocks at certain points. And like Jay-Z said, we'll never fall down because we'll be each other's crutches. So I appreciate and thankful for everybody that's been a crutch for me in the past, presently, and the crutches I need, soon to come.
Well said. Dr. Suggs?
Yeah, well, I want to sort of piggyback on what Dr. Mitchell has said about reimagining oneself. I mean, we're so close to history, we don't really recognize. I mean, like Jackie didn't consider herself to be a global athlete when she started, and she realized, oh my goodness, here I am. St. Louis, after what we saw happen in Florida, the true genesis for Black Lives Matter, which is a historic event, we'll look back in retrospect, really was generated by some courageous, unselfish, primarily Black women, quite frankly. So St. Louis was the genesis for a movement that is spread across the country. There could have been no George Floyd response had there not been Ferguson. So if you're not deterred by the brand, so she's asked me to be brief, so I want to just say this one thing, what's helped me measurably: try to find like-minded people. My best friends are not my colleagues in the healthcare field. My best friends are all makers. They are people who do what people say can't be done. They are makers, they are artists, they make things. And it changed my whole frame of reference for my personal life. My whole value system shifted because I learned to be more like-minded. I learned to be more intellectually curious. I learned to be more deep thinking about some of these subjects. So I would say, just in the short term, however you decide to go, try to find like-minded people. If you're aspirational, try to find people who aspire. Most people, quite frankly, are going to be followers. They're going to go where everybody else is going. But if you are the kind of person who thinks for themselves and is not deterred by brands, then St. Louis, I think, affords a really interesting, a lot of trade-offs here, but I mean, there's really a lot to offer here in St. Louis. And all of us on this panel, I think any of you who would like to continue this conversation on an individual basis, I know I would, I'm sure Jackie would, and I'm sure Dr. Mitchell would as well. Find like-minded people.
Great. We have just a couple of minutes left, and I need to turn it over to Kathy before we end, but thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Dr. Suggs, and thank you YPN members for attending this evening. I hope you heard great pieces of wisdom, and I hope you take it to heart about find like-minded people, as you just heard. Ask yourself the question, why not you? Why not now? Think about the opportunity to serve. And remember that it's not giving back, but what you owe. It's not giving back, but what you owe. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this panel discussion this evening, and I will turn it over to Kathy Osborne. Thank you, Regional Business Council, and thank you, Tina Haberberger, for putting this together.
Well, my mind is completely blown. This was just, I was so excited about tonight that I kept calling Tina and say, what time? What time is it going to be? How many people are coming? I can't wait to see them. It's, I know all of you learned a lot because I took all these notes and I was just integrating everything that was said here. And just a couple of comments that I want to say. First off, I think Vernon mentioned the opportunity to serve our mayor of the city of St. Louis, Tashara Jones. And what I want to say about that is I feel a really deep sense. I grew up in the 70s when there was tremendous change in our society and young people were saying, no, we got to do this different. We've got to be more inclusive. And now I see it now in 2022. What I want to say is I'm very excited about having a Black female mayor who's as smart and articulate as this mayor is. And occasionally hear somebody say, oh, but I didn't like what she did here, or whatever. It's just minor details. It's what this means right now for St. Louis and frankly, for diverse leadership in this town. So Dr. Mitchell, welcome. And I had a ringside seat when Sheena Hamilton, who was very successful in her law degree, was a member of our Young Professionals Network steering committee. And she was wrestling with, should I do this? Should I apply for this? Is it right? And it was all came down to, for her, I can always go back to this career I have, but this is a moment to serve. And everybody I talk to tells me what a great job she's doing in her position. So expect those unexpected things. But again, support our mayor, support her leadership, support regional leaders. Jackie's not the only person who grew up in East St. Louis. We have a member, Jimmy Williams, who grew up there, he and his wife, and they think about East St. Louis all the time. Tremendously successful, but they know that's where the roots were. And no matter where your roots are, St. Louis is a nice place to plant them because you're right. A little girl like me, who is in a family of 7 and had to work since I was 14, I've been able to serve. And that's what's given me my great awards or rewards. A couple things. First off, Jackie, we'd like to make a donation to Jackie Joyner-Kersee Center. Again, to thank you for your tremendous leadership. Dr. Mitchell, we're going to make a gift to Dream Builders for Equity in the Hyde Park neighborhood, which the mayor has expressed great interest, and we're already supporting what they're doing there. If you don't know about the St. Louis American Foundation, Educational Foundation, you need to know about it. Put it on your list of things to give to, events to go to every year. If you haven't been, you've got to go for the next 20 years. It's the sort of happening event. And unexpected things happen, but give to that foundation. They do a lot of good work. And to Laurna Godwin, is she just amazing? I'm just in awe of how she does these things, just totally in awe. And there's a lot of things I could give on her behalf, but what I want to say right tonight is the work that she's done to help the Police Foundation. You know, we all know that it's really about intervention and prevention. That's why Jackie does what she does. But also it's really about having a good police force that knows what their role is versus what the rest of our roles are. So for all of you, this was our gift for Black History Month. I feel like I asked my grandchildren the other day, they're in Webster, they're 9. And I said, did you do anything at school for Black History Month? And they went on and on and on. We had to read this book. We did this, we talked this. Well, you know, Nana, about that. Well, you didn't know this. And I thought, this is amazing. These young 9-year-olds are getting a history, frankly, I did not get. I had to learn this along the way. So this is our gift. It's Black History Month. Take one more occasion. It's the end of the month to sort of reflect what that means to you in your life. Recommit yourself to something you haven't yet committed to and watch for the unexpected. So panelists, I'm in awe. Thank you very much. It was very inspiring. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you